God bless America. Hello, everybody. I am the Talk Radio Protege. This is the Protege program. Thank you so much for joining me. Today, I want to talk about this story from Vice, and I am showing you an archived version. We will switch over to the current version once I make my initial remarks. So, conservatives have been talking for many months about Twitter's throttling and shadow banning policies that are exercised, I would say 9 out of every 10 occurrences of throttling or shadow banning is exercised against conservatives / Republicans. It's almost never used against the left. So we've been talking about, or conservatives and Republicans have been talking about this for a long time. And Vice News, of all places, published this story yesterday. The original headline, Twitter is shadow banning prominent Republicans like the RNC chair and Trump Jr.'s spokesman. Now, I believe there are some screenshots in here that show exactly the way in which the shadow banning was working. They might not be on this archive. It might describe the nature of the shadow banning somewhere in there, but I'm just gonna, just for time's sake, I'm just gonna do it for the story. So, Vice discovered that if you go to Twitter, click in the search field, and begin to type the name of a handful of prominent Republicans, that the accounts linked to those people would not appear in the auto-populate field that appears under the search bar. Now, if you click search, if you click enter after you've typed the person's name in, they are the first result on the results page. But for convenience sake, most people I would assume, I'm not a frequent Twitter user myself, I would assume that most people would just use the autocomplete field rather than click through to the results. So, Vice was talking about this as if it were a shadow ban. Now, there was a New York, I believe it's just New York Magazine, published an article that argued that this is not technically shadow banning. And I will concede that technically this is not shadow banning. The very specific technical definition of shadow banning is when you turn off a person's ability to share information, to make tweets. The term comes from way back when internet forums were the main way that people communicated. There was no Twitter, there was no Facebook, but there were a lot of forums. And shadow banning someone on a forum meant that when they would post something, only they could see that the post had gone out, and no one else would see that. That is a traditional, technical shadow ban. And that has not happened to these specific people. It's just that their searchability has been throttled. And I'm using throttling because I think that more accurately describes this mechanism. And the only reason that I'm not going to say shadow banning, like a lot of other people commenting on this issue have been, is because I'm sure that right-wing individuals, right-leaning people, would not mind me characterizing this occurrence as shadow banning. But I'm not going to convince anybody on the left that Twitter is shadow banning these people because they're not technically shadow banning them. It is accurate to say that it's accurate for Twitter to say, no, we're not shadow banning these people because according to the technical definition of shadow banning, they have not been shadow banned. They have been throttled because they had been, rather, throttled. Let's go ahead and jump over to the current version of the Vice story. That Twitter appears to have fixed the shadow ban of these individuals. Because now, when you type in the names of people like the RNC chair and Trump Jr. spokesperson, their names will appear in the autocomplete field. So those accounts, while they had not technically been shadow banned, they had been throttled in that the access and features that are given by default to the vast majority of Twitter accounts were being held back from these specific accounts. That is inarguable. Vice News has shared the screenshots that demonstrate that these accounts had been throttled according to the definition that I would submit to you is the proper characterization of throttling an account. And that is that you're withholding a default feature of a regular Twitter account. And it's this throttling that Twitter is refusing to admit that they do. The whole time that we were talking about this event as a shadow ban, Twitter was saying, no, we're not shadow banning them. We're not shadow banning people. We're not shadow banning conservatives. They could have come out and been truthful. They could have come out and said, we're not shadow banning them, but their accounts have been throttled. We're working on undoing that. That would have been the candorous. Is that a word? Candor would be the root word. Truthful, honest. You know, those would also be characterizations of it. But maybe you don't like that characterization. That would be the most candor with which Twitter could have answered this allegation, is that no, they're not being shadow banned, but yes, their accounts have been throttled. Instead, they just flat denied, no, nothing is untoward here, nothing is happening, they're not being shadow banned. So, let's look at, because Vice comments on some of the policies that Twitter claims they're implementing. Let's go down and have a look at what Twitter says is going on. Let me see. Okay, presented with the screenshots of the searches, a Twitter spokesperson told Vice News, "We are aware that some accounts are not automatically populating in our search box and shipping a change to address this." Okay, so accounts automatically populating in the search box is a typical feature of a Twitter account. A Twitter account not having this feature has been throttled. I think we can all agree to this. Asked why only conservative Republicans appear to have been affected and not liberal Democrats, the spokesperson wrote, "I would emphasize that our technology is based on account behavior, not the content of the tweets." Now, let's talk about the behavior that is being targeted for throttling. I think that the Vice story talks about this. A lot of what I've heard is from Tim Pool's video, and I'll make sure that I've liked that so that it will be on my liked playlist, and you should be able to go and find that easily. Also, you could just go and check out Tim Pool's channel, and it's the most recent video. It's the video from this date, the date that I uploaded this video. Let's see. Just for time's sake, I'll try to describe, to the best of my knowledge, the behavior that Twitter is cracking down on. Now, Twitter seems to be targeting behavior that is consistent with quote-unquote trolling. Now, troll accounts tend to do a couple of things. One of the things that they tend to do is get blocked by a whole bunch of people. Troll accounts are very quickly blocked by slews and slews of individuals. And so, from what I understand, Twitter is targeting accounts that are blocked by a lot of people and just sort of preemptively throttling those accounts. You know, organically, those accounts would be throttled. The more people that block that account, the less access or the less exposure that account is going to get. Therefore, that account will be throttled, not by Twitter, but by the users of Twitter. That's what I would like to call an organic throttling of an account. You know, let's say that tomorrow, half of the Twitter users blocked President Trump. They would stop seeing his tweets, and his account would not be visible to half of Twitter. You know, under circumstances, let's say that Twitter decided to throttle the president's Twitter account such that half of the Twitter user base did not see his tweets. You know, that would be a throttled account. You might even say that that would be a shadow banned account. But if the Twitter user base did that, you know, I would be much more accepting of that kind of change. You know, that could be, I think that would be fairly characterized as organic throttling of an account. So what Twitter does is Twitter looks at accounts that have been organically throttled. They look at, and what they catch when they do a sweep of accounts that have been organically throttled is they find a lot of troll accounts, and then they find a lot of accounts that are on lists. Now, if you've never heard of these lists are sometimes called block bots. And what the block bot does is it's a... I've never used one, so I can't tell you from experience. I'm just telling you from what I understand, is that you upload a piece of code or you access a URL of some kind, and that URL pilots your Twitter account and blocks a whole bunch of people. It blocks trolls and real accounts alike. It blocks sock puppets, it blocks trolls, it blocks real people, it blocks bots. It is indiscriminate. If your account is on the list, you will be blocked. Some block bots are extremely expansive. You know, there's kind of a meme about a guy who's on YouTube. His name is Steve Shives. Now, if you don't appreciate people that are very vulgar in their YouTube videos, I wouldn't recommend Steve Shives. If you don't like the most left of left-wing social justice warriors, I wouldn't recommend Steve Shives, unless you want to watch him for purely educational purposes, because I think that's the only way that you could describe Steve Shives' YouTube account, if you're not a left-wing person, is it's educational of what a lot of left-wing people think these days. Steve Shives is rumored to employ the most extensive of block bots. Back in the earliest days of when Steve Shives was growing as an SJW channel on YouTube, some people were running videos that were titled, "You don't know this man, but chances are he has blocked you already," because he employs one of the most expansive block bots on Twitter. And so when Twitter, you know, casts their net and they look for accounts that are getting blocked by a lot of people, they catch people that are affected by these block bots. And this is where the bias comes in. This is where the bias comes in, and it's bias that you could fairly say is unintentional, but it's bias that Twitter can't help but catch because they are a left-leaning organization. They don't think that they are biased or that they are being biased when they say, we're going out and we're looking at these Twitter accounts that just get blocked by everybody, and we're saying, you're blocked by everybody, so you must be a bad Twitter account. And we're shadow banning or throttling your account. But what happens is that left-wing people, left-leaning individuals, are much, much more likely to employ a block bot. And so, and those block bots get used against right-wing people. And so, when Twitter casts their net and they look for people that are blocked by a high number of accounts, they find individuals that have been blocked by block bots because the left uses these block bots. And because the left uses block bots against the right, the right gets caught up in the Twitter net. They get caught up in the net that Twitter casts out when they look for accounts that are blocked by a lot of people. And instead of parsing those accounts and seeing which accounts are real individuals, which accounts are legitimate people that don't tweet nonstop, that tweet somewhat infrequently, that tweet like normal people tweet, they just assume that these accounts are bad, that these accounts are trolls or sock puppets or bots, and those accounts get throttled and or shadow banned. So that's where the bias comes in. That's what, it's something, I think I've mentioned it in passing. I know I talked about it a little bit in a previous video, but when the left targets quote-unquote behaviors, they inevitably target right-wing people, because what the left and the right currently think of as acceptable dialogue or bad behavior is vastly different. The left does not believe in free speech. So when the left looks for quote-unquote bad behavior, they are going to target people that are speaking in such a way that they don't approve. But they don't think of this as bias against right-wing people, because they think that everybody thinks the same way that they do. Because we're talking about Silicon Valley. We're talking about a very isolated bubble of the country. We're talking about people that employ extensive block bots and purposefully isolate themselves from opposing opinions. I've always been of the opinion, and I haven't said it a lot, but I've always been of the opinion that if you're a conservative, you don't live in a bubble by default, because everybody else around you is opposed to your opinion. When you go to college, you're going to encounter people that oppose your opinion by default, because they are in the vast majority on college campuses. When you watch cable news, when you watch late night comedy, you're going to be exposed to a differing opinion, because there are very few late night comics or cable news anchors that are not left-wing. When you go out into the world, you're going to be exposed to left-wing opinion. Now, we're getting to the point where you can self-curate exclusively right-wing news and opinion, if you so desire. But still, it is very difficult for a right-wing person to isolate themselves in a bubble. For the left, it's much, much easier. These people that live and work in Silicon Valley, they live and work with mostly left-wing individuals. They watch a lot of the same television, they watch a lot of the same news, they watch a lot of the same late-night comedy. And so they get exposed only to left-wing opinion. They employ block bots so that their Twitter is so that no right-winger ever tarnishes their Twitter account, so that they can scroll for years on their Twitter feed and never see a right-wing opinion. And this is how they get themselves into a bubble and get to thinking that everybody thinks that hate speech is a bad thing. Everybody thinks that free speech ought to be curtailed according to hate speech. That everybody thinks that certain behaviors are unacceptable and should be curated off of Twitter. And so then when people say, you have a left-wing bias, they say, no, this is the way that literally everybody I associate with and consume media from thinks. And they're not lying, because they've so thoroughly isolated themselves that they have absolutely no exposure to right-wing opinion. And for right-wingers, this is almost impossible. Right-wingers, almost by principle, don't employ block bots, because they believe in freedom of speech, because they want to hear the opinions of the other side. And I would assume that a right-wing person, at least me personally, I wouldn't want to employ a block bot. If I was going to block people, I would want to actually go and hit the button that says block, because then I know that I have had some hand in making the judgment that this person has nothing constructive to offer for me. They have only criticism that I'm not going to learn anything from. I can't have a constructive conversation with this person. All they're going to do is insult me. So I'm going to block them. But if I rely on a block bot, then I don't know. Maybe somebody that can offer constructive criticism has been blocked. You know, as a right-wing person, I wouldn't use a block bot. But it's a pattern of behavior that the left employs extensive block bots because they don't want to have their sensibilities offended. And so you end up with right-wingers, Republicans, conservatives on these lists that Twitter targets for shadow bans and for throttling. I did a little bit of ranting on this video, but I hope that you enjoyed it nonetheless. Thank you so much for watching. Tomorrow, this week has been a little crazy. Suffice it to say that I have been without my car more than I have had my car this week. And I'm getting ready to travel. As you know, I've been giving you some updates occasionally about next week's videos. There is a video uploaded and scheduled to be published Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday next week. One of them is an hour of Roe versus Wade footage, and the way that I hope that it's going to go is that hour 1 of the Roe v. Wade video will be up on Thursday. Hour 2 of the Roe v. Wade video will be up on Friday. Hopefully that will be all of Roe v. Wade that we have to read. And the impact of overturning Roe v. Wade is going to go up on Saturday. Now, if there needs to be more reading of Roe v. Wade, that will also go up on Saturday. Hopefully, my fingers are crossed. I'm planning on getting all of this done tonight, getting it uploaded tonight and tomorrow, and having everything scheduled and ready to go by tomorrow evening. Hopefully there will also be time for me to go ahead and do a normal video tomorrow so that I can get that uploaded for your viewing pleasure. Thank you so much for watching and listening to this brief update. I hope that you enjoyed. Leave a like if you did. Hit subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. As always, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. I say as always, but I so frequently forget to remind people that I want to hear your thoughts. So, so hopefully I'll be saying that more often. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you'll come back next time. Until then, good night and God bless.